Larger wood is called fuel. Smaller diameter wood or medium-sized wood would be considered kindling. And then the third thing would be tinder. It's going to be the small diameter materials to help get the fire started. And so let's talk about more of natural tinder. In my area, there's a lot of examples. There's tinder everywhere, in fact. I do not have the cattail down represented here today. Also, I do not have pine sap represented here. And there's probably a whole bunch of other stuff I'm missing. But these are just the things that are in my immediate area right here, right next to me. Dried grass. I tried to harvest this when it's still in the vertical upright position. So it's typically the driest that way. Then you have small diameter twigs and just basically like, pieces of wood debris that come off trees. This still would be too large just to put a lighter up to it and try to catch it. So you'd probably have to break this down with your hands or take your knife and make shavings out of this. But you wouldn't take that much effort and you'd have a tinder source. The next would be pine cones. And pine cones, especially with a lot of sap on them, are really good. But you still would want to break this down even further. Now, I have had some success, and I even have a video of me taking a lighter and just lighting a pine cone directly, and it caught fire, and it lasted about 3 minutes. But not all pine cones can do that because some of them don't have very much sap at all. And so what I would do is just, take the backside of your hatchet or your axe and just crush these, or take a rock and just hit it a few times and break this up. The more you can break the fibers and increase the surface area, the better, because you can introduce more oxygen. And so that would be an option. And then also there's all kinds of plants, in particular weeds in my area. When they dry and they die during the winter, you can easily snap them from the ground because they're still in the vertical position. And like this, for example, I don't even know what this is. It's just a type of weed, I believe. And it's very, very hollow inside, actually. And so it's very lightweight, and as you can see, you can crush it. And so that's what I would do. I would break this up further, and you can use it as a tinder source. You can also feather stick a limb or a piece of a branch, sticks, whatever it may be, reducing the diameter. Try and get it as paper thin as possible. And once again, you increase the surface area on this kind of material as well, so that it can actually catch a spark. Of course, the thinner the better when you just start out trying to get the fire going. And so I keep a lot of my feather sticks in a number 10 can and keep it as watertight as possible. You can also go with leaves. Drier the better. As you can see, leaves are everywhere, and even year round. Even in the winter, you can dig down and find leaves. They may not all be dry, but if you dig far enough down, typically you can find something that's dry. Now, if you can find leaves, especially dead, dried leaves on an actual tree or sapling, those are really probably the best source, because if there was any moisture, especially from the dew in the morning or a rain, within a matter of hours, the moisture actually either evaporates off of the hanging, limbs and leaves and stuff, but they also can drip dry, unlike maybe leaves and stuff that are on the ground. And so they typically are much drier. And that goes for bark too. Bark that's actually still on the tree. And of course, I wouldn't damage a tree or nothing for bark unless it was an emergency. But typically you can find trees that have tons of bark that's actually peeling off naturally. And I'd harvest that. I have some bark right here that was on the ground this morning, and I just picked it up. And so this is very fibrous material, as you can see. You can pull this apart even more, increasing the surface area, introducing more oxygen, and this would catch. This is slightly damp, but I would put this out in the sun for a few hours and totally dry this out, and this would be a good option. But if you can find a tree, and I'm looking at a few, I don't think this is going to pick it up in the camera, but I'm looking at several trees right now that has at least 8 to 12 inch hangings of bark that's just peeled back just naturally. And so in that sense, you could go and just harvest that. And that'll probably be a little bit drier than the stuff that I just got off of the floor. And so lastly, if you have pine needles, especially with some sap on them, this is not the best example. I just found a few bits and stuff, different needles, but yeah, that's going to be a good option as well. You probably want to get quite a few of them and then even crush them down even further. So yeah, the things once again that I don't have here to represent is the cattail down, and any other type of maybe like wood specimen that would be really, really awesome. For example, fat wood comes to mind, and this is the resin ingrained wood. It's the heart of a pine tree, really. And if you can get in there and even bring some of that with you, if you're on a camping expedition or even for your go bag, that has a lot of sap and resin that's going to really give you a quick, fast burn, especially from catching a spark. And so it does burn a little bit fast, but it is very hot. And so that's what you need just to get the fire going. It is a good option. So, hey, thanks for coming along. You guys take care. I'll catch you later.